If you've seen Netflix's hit series The Watcher, you know it's one of those shows that just gets under your skin. A beautiful home, a perfect family, and a terrifying nightmare that unfolds letter by letter. But the scariest part isn't what's on the screen. It's the question that lingers after. How much of that was actually real? Well, the truth is a wild mix of fact and fiction, and we're about to untangle it all.
To really get this, we have to start at the source. This line, this is from one of the actual letters. Just let that sink in. Imagine getting this in the mail. It's not just a threat. It's this creepy, generational claim on your home, making you feel like you're just the latest character in somebody else's terrifying story.
Okay, so here's the big secret, the key to the whole thing. The show isn't one true story. Nope. It's a clever and kind of terrifying mashup of two totally separate, real-life events that happened in the exact same town but decades apart. Once you know that, you can start to see where Hollywood took over.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll quickly go over the story from the show. Then, we'll dig into the two real cases that inspired it all, the creepy letters and a much, much older crime. We'll look at how the writers fused them together, and we'll end with the biggest question of all, the part of this mystery that's still unsolved.
All right, let's dive in. First things first, let's just recap the story we all saw on Netflix. This is the fictional version, The Nightmare on Netflix.
You know the setup, right? It's a classic horror premise. A family sinks every dime they have into this gorgeous house at 657 Boulevard, only to be immediately targeted by a stalker who sends these incredibly sinister letters. This watcher is obsessed with the house, and even worse, with the family. And slowly, paranoia just takes over, and their perfect life completely falls apart.
Which of course leads us all to the million-dollar question. How much of that really happened? Well, the answer is complicated. Some of it is shockingly true, while other parts are pure Hollywood invention.
So to get to the truth, we have to do what the show's creators did, but backwards. We need to untangle their narrative and look at the two real, totally separate stories they pulled from.
Let's start with the most famous part of the story, the one that gave the show its name. This is the real story of the Broaddus family and the real Watcher letters. So meet the real family. Back in 2014, Derek and Maria Broaddus bought their dream home at 657 Boulevard for over $1.3 million. Just like the family in the show, they had young kids and were so excited to start this new chapter in a town Maria grew up in.
The letters they got were just unbelievably creepy and personal. I mean, listen to this quote. The writer is directly talking about their children, calling them young blood. This wasn't some generic threat. The Watcher was specifically targeting their kids, making them the center of this twisted fantasy. And this is how you know it wasn't just a random prank. The Watcher knew things, intimate things. The number of kids, their nicknames, even their birth order. They mentioned specific contractors working on the house. This wasn't a guess. This was someone actively watching them, every single day.
And here it is. This is the single biggest difference between the TV show and what really happened. The whole premise of the family being terrorized while living in the house, that's completely made up. In real life, the Broaddus family was so freaked out by those letters, they decided they could never move in. They never spent a single night at 657 Boulevard.
So their dream didn't just turn into a psychological nightmare, it became a financial catastrophe too. After years of being stuck with this house they couldn't live in or sell, they finally unloaded it in 2019, taking a massive loss of about $400,000.
Okay, now for the second true story. This is the one that gives the show its darkest, most violent subplot. It's a much older, much more gruesome crime from Westfield's past, and it's the story of a man named John List.
The show calls him John Graft, but his real name was John List. And by all accounts, he seemed like the most boring guy imaginable. A quiet accountant, a devout churchgoer, but that whole persona was a mask for something truly monstrous. He was capable of meticulously planning and murdering his entire family.
Just look at this timeline. In 1971, John List murders his family and just vanishes. For almost 18 years, he lives a totally new life under a fake name. He was only caught in 1989 after the TV show America's Most Wanted ran a story on him, complete with a sculpture of what he might look like aged. A viewer recognized him, and just like that, his time on the run was over.
What is so unbelievably haunting about this is the cold, calculated planning.
This was not a crime of passion. He killed his family members one by one over an entire day, even stopping to eat lunch. He arranged their bodies, wrote a confession, canceled the mail to buy himself time, and then he systematically cut his own face out of every single family photo. He was a complete erasure of his own existence.
So you have a stalking case from 2014 and a family massacre from 1971. How in the world did the creators of The Watcher stitch these two completely unrelated events together? This is where we get into the fusion.
This is where the show pulls off its cleverest trick. It takes the real John List crime and changes two massive details. First, it moves the year of the crime from 1971 up to 1995. But the real masterstroke is changing the address. They take the murders that happened at List's real home on Hillside Avenue, and they place them inside 657 Boulevard, inventing this horrifying backstory for the Watcher house that never actually happened.
And they tweaked other little details to make the stories fit, like changing the number of kids and the style of the house. But the biggest invention of all was creating a link where there was none. The show suggests that the Watcher knew about the murders and even helped the killer get away. In reality, these two cases had absolutely nothing to do with each other.
So after we've separated the facts of these two different cases, we're left with what is honestly the most unsettling part of the whole original story: the mystery itself. This is the one question everyone asks, and the answer is profoundly disturbing. After all this time, nobody knows. Despite investigations by the police, by private investigators, even by former FBI agents, no one has ever been officially identified. They looked at suspects, they tested DNA, but nothing ever stuck.
And that is the stark, chilling reality of the situation. The person who wrote those awful letters, who knew those private details, who turned a family's dream into a years-long nightmare, they were never caught. The investigation is basically inactive now, but officially it has never been closed.
And that leaves us with one last, chilling thought. The show blended two horrors, but in real life, only one was ever truly solved. John List, the monster they could see and identify, was eventually brought to justice. But the real Watcher? They remain a ghost, an anonymous figure who terrorized a family and just got away with it. And it's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monster is the one you never, ever get to see.